Welcome to Matter Studio. This is Talk Tuesday. I'm Susan Buchser-Lochocki, running for President of the United States with the Green Party. And it's, I think I already said Talk Tuesday. It's May 27th, I believe. And it's time for part one. Welcome. So today is about women's rights and women's issues. I'm going to do both parts in that. It could be that we run over and into a whole nother week because the women's topic's pretty big. But I first want to start with my childhood a little bit. And this is a excerpt from the Declaration of Independence from 1776. Apparently this part was written by Thomas Jefferson. And it goes, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." And it ends there. So for me, growing up, especially also during, watching like cartoons and TV shows and everything, when the word men was said, for me, it meant really all men, not just men. It meant women too. It meant humanity. And, the word used to refer to everybody was used in many other documents at the time. And for me, it was clear that it was about all of us. And it wasn't just about white men. And it wasn't just about, men in general. It was about all people living in the United States. So Native Americans, Asian Americans, African Americans, European Americans, everybody. And it wasn't until maybe in 9th or 10th grade did I realize that it wasn't really seen like that. But, we were all moving towards, it was like the 80s, early 80s. So we were all moving towards that purpose anyways at the time. And then time passed, and I was a mom and I moved to Switzerland and really time passed. And then I started doing research for this art project that I did earlier in the year about the 19th Amendment. And it was only then that I realized that no, it really wasn't interpreted that way, or at some point somebody decided they weren't going to interpret it that way. Now, I really think that when it was officially written, that it was meant to be seen as humankind, all men. But unfortunately, somewhere, someone decided, no, it was only men. And that's where all the problems began. Apparently, early in the States, when they were moving across the country and things, as we expanded, there were times where women actually had the right to vote, and then it was taken away. So at some point, somebody decided, no, women are not equal. And yeah, it was a bad decision, for sure. But now we're at a point in our history where we're changing that. And, we're at a point in time where we can. We maybe weren't always able to do this either, but we are now. So with that said, I am really proud for all the women who have been struggling before me and whose shoulders I stand on for sure, Thank you. Sorry. Didn't plan that. So, anyways, I need to address a few things. If there are any children watching right now and your parent is not around, what you need to do is you need to contact them and you need to say, I want to watch this video. So you should pause it. You should go get your parent, say, Mommy, Daddy, Grandma, Grandpa, whomever, Uncle, Aunt, I want to watch this video. Is it okay? Can I watch it? And then they can tell you if it's okay or not. Okay, so pause it and go check and then come back. And then, I'm saying that because YouTube has these two functions where you can say if things are for children or not. And, in my household, raising my daughter, I really didn't hold back a lot of information. If she had a question, I answered it. And I answered it truthfully. I, of course, didn't give her all sorts of gory details or whatever, but, I told things that were appropriate for her age. And children are curious, so we shouldn't tell them to stop asking questions. We should try to answer them. Google is a big help, to find out why the sky is blue and stuff for scientific purposes. We used it a lot during her childhood, so yeah, I think it's important to keep the dialogue open with your child, and I am here to also guide children to knowledge. So I'm happy to be here. All right. So as you know, I am dressed as a suffragette. I'm still marching for women's rights, and women of all different sorts. So the first thing I want to go over is something that I came across as I was trying to discover what is a woman. And apparently, you know what, I'm going to have a sip of coffee. It's decaf. This is a diagram that I showed before in the LGBTQIA video that I did like 2 weeks ago. And it shows that when we're born, there are actually 7 variations that have been recorded as far as people being born. So there's with a full penis, there's with a penis with some sort of variation, and so on until we get to the vagina with maybe a large clitoris and then a vagina with a smaller clitoris. So these are all the variations of human beings that are out there. Now, I'm not sure, but I think that I know some men for sure in the United States get circumcised. But I'm now beginning to wonder if there is female circumcision going on too. Or another word for it might be female genital mutilation. So I have some more investigation to do on this, but I'll let you know in a week or two what I discover. But I think let's start there. Whether you're religious or not, and this is one of my arguments with religious people, if God created you in his image, you are perfect. So then why do we get circumcised? Why do men or boys get circumcised? It doesn't make sense if we're perfect. So, with that said, I think circumcision is maybe not the healthiest thing. We are, anyways, born perfect by nature. I'm a believer in nature. And for me, we are perfect when we come into this world. We don't need a lot of changes. You know, there are sometimes things that go wrong that a doctor can do to save our lives. But circumcision is not a life-saving operation. It's not. So, that's my view on circumcision. I think it takes away enjoyment. I think it changes aggression in people. So, what is a woman? For me, a woman is somebody who either thinks that they're a woman or is an actual woman with a uterus for a working uterus where one can produce babies. There are maybe many variations of women. We should probably once maybe have a meeting about this. I think maybe just having the two genders is not enough, especially if we stop circumcising women when they're born. We can have more than two genders. The Navajo Indians, or the Navajo Native Americans, they have 4 genders that I'm aware of. I used to think it was 5, but I recently did some research, like I said, and it turns out that I was wrong. It's only 4. So, you know, I think we need to rethink the whole gender thing. I think 3 should be the minimum, but we can expand it to 4. I think 4 is a good number too. But yeah. So, what is a woman? A woman is here, our bodies are good for being a human being, first off. Then for reproduction and for enjoyment. We're built to make and carry children, and we're also built for pleasure. Our breasts serve 2 purposes, technically really just 1. They're actually meant to feed babies. But, you know, people, men, like breasts too. And so, yes, that's understandable. So already, you know, it is complex and confusing being a woman, because we have these 2 sides. We have the mother side, and then we have the female side, the sexual side. And, you know, we go through our days mixing it all up. And then to also try to be seen as just a human being that is not sexual, that is not a mother, that is the in-between stage, the hard stage to get to. So, I think we now understand that babies might come into the world a little bit different than what you and I were told, or maybe know about. Then there is the period of time in a girl's life where she grows up, you know, where she is a girl, and then she gets her first period. And that can be anywhere from 10 to 15 years old. There's no correct time period. There might even be girls that get it earlier. But there's a time for being a girl, for just being a female without any obligation of sex or reproduction of any sort. Then, at the age of 18, in our world, girls become women. And they can fully make up their mind and choose to do what they want to do with their lives. So my understanding is between like 20 and 35, that's the best time to make babies. And then after 35 to about 55, women go into menopause. And then, from like 50 until I'm going to say about 70, 60, 70 is a good time to be a strong leader, a grandma, something like that, or to go back to the work world and do things of that nature. And then there is retirement and old age, where you become more an advisor and a storyteller. Now, our current education system is set up mostly for a man's life, because you go and go and go and you learn and learn and learn, and then you graduate at 18 and you go into higher education. And by the time you're done with higher education, you're in your mid to late 20s, and you get a job, and you start working, and you start your career. And that works for men, because men can have babies at any time. But women, our baby making time is restricted a little bit. Yes, there is in vitro fertilization, but I have heard so many horror stories over the years where people just throw so much money into it and they don't get a baby, that we should, if you're planning, if you think you might, you should try to do it with your own eggs during the normal life cycle of making babies. There is a time to make babies, and then there is a time to work. And the two don't always meet up at the same time. Working is not always a hobby, and being a mother is not a hobby for sure. So, my suggestion for that is that we need to especially make schools for women going back to the work world around the age of 35 or 40, when they're done raising their children mostly, and it's time that they want to get back to the work world and start a career. Maybe they had a career before, maybe they were working on something during their motherhood time. Maybe they want to expand on that or something. But we need to make a special program helping women get back to work.